Just like that, after Oklahoma beats Tulsa in Tulsa, you would think that this is going to give Oklahoma a boost on the recruiting trail because they went into Tulsa and absolutely dominated the Golden Hurricanes. And you had some high profile kids that play in the Tulsa area in town, in the game. You had Danny Okoye, you have Devon Jordan, and I'm sure there were many others there. Now, the effect of what this game and what this season is going to have on recruits in the city of Tulsa for Oklahoma, that's remained to be seen. But Oklahoma has positioned themselves very well for a couple four-star prospects out of the city of Tulsa. And the first one is the guy who is making his decision this Wednesday at 6:30 p.m., Danny Okoye, the 6'4", 240-pound edge rusher out of Noah Homeschool. He's down to Texas. He's down to Tennessee. And I got a chance to catch up with Danny today, actually. And he kind of talked to me about these top three, right? And a little bit about these schools. And the first one was, and we got to start with it, it's Texas. He said Texas is always going to bring the energy, and I definitely think they're back in business. And I don't disagree with Danny Okoye here. I do believe Texas is kind of back on the map. I mean, they beat Bama in a high-profile game, and although Bama doesn't look the best, it's still Bama. They went into Bryant-Denny Stadium and took care of business. The question is, can Texas go in there and take care of business for the rest of the season? Obviously, they struggled against Wyoming, but Wyoming ain't a pushover. So I think there's going to be a lot of recruits like Danny Okoye that are trying to pay attention to whether or not Texas is able to put this together and be able to really show to not only the recruits but fans across the nation that Texas is serious, and they're serious about going out there and trying to win championships once again. But then he said this about Tennessee. He says, Tennessee has been pouring the love on me, and I love how genuine everyone over there has been with me. And we've heard a lot about this on the recruiting trail, about Josh Heupel and the staff really developing relationships really well. And as you can hear from Danny Okoye, it sounds like he's doing just that. And then he said this about OU. He said, OU is back. I definitely am interested to see what Venables' finished product is going to look like. And you heard this in an interview with Travis Davidson over at The Ref earlier this year when he had Danny Okoye on, and he talked about how he really got a chance to sit down and dive into the Venables defense, learn about the history of not only what he did at Clemson, but what he did at his time at Oklahoma, and understanding that the 6-win season that Venables posted last year, that's not going to be the norm. And so you look at what the decision could come down to for Danny Okoye. All signs point towards this is going to be an Oklahoma win, and I'm right there with it. It seems like the love for Oklahoma is there. Although he grew up in an Oklahoma State family, and months ago I would have told you, hey, you know what? Let's pump the brakes on Danny Okoye to OU. Things have just ramped up really quickly. And if OU continues to perform really well on the defensive side of the ball and continue to shape and mold this defense into a top defense in the country, you would imagine Danny Okoye is not the only 24 prospect that is either uncommitted or committed that will give Oklahoma another look. But the other guy, Devon Jordan, the 5'11", 168-pound cornerback out of Union High School, that's a guy that you want to pay a little bit more attention to as well, because this is a guy that is wanted by the Alabama Crimson Tide defensive staff. This is also a guy that Nick Saban really wants. And when Saban wants a kid, he can normally get the kid. So you're looking at Alabama, Oklahoma State, and Oklahoma. And Oklahoma State, I don't feel like is going to be as big of a battle or big of a recruiting threat than Alabama. But Alabama's not posting up a good season. So there is a chance that OU has positioned themselves to be in the driver's seat. I personally have not talked to Devon Jordan, so I'm just playing pure hypotheticals here. Speculating what's going on. But Devon Jordan out of Union High School is a guy that I definitely think OU fans need to make their attention to, because it's a guy that could definitely be a part of this team going into the 24 cycle and going into the SEC. But looking at some other guys in the state of Tulsa, there's an offensive tackle out of Bixby, Oklahoma, and you would imagine that He doesn't have an OU offer right now, but he could get the PWO. And if he gets the PWO and OU posts this great season, you would imagine that he would be a part of this team as well. So looking at some of the other recruits that Oklahoma is definitely chasing after, and I think one that most OU fans are continuing to pay attention to is the 5-star defensive lineman Williams Nwaneri, who once again is the #1 player overall in this class according to On3, and rightfully so. I mean, Williams Nwaneri is an extremely talented kid. But Oklahoma fans are probably a little concerned because Missouri is currently sitting at 3-0 and won a game that kind of we were all banking on them losing, which was Kansas State. Now, not to say that their wins have been pretty. They only beat Middle Tennessee by 4. Middle Tennessee was the team that knocked off Miami last season. You heard me right on that. Middle Tennessee. And then you had Kansas State, who they beat by 3. Kansas State has been a topper echelon team in the Big 12 for the past couple of seasons, and they only beat South Dakota by 25. So although their wins haven't looked sexy and they haven't looked pretty, Missouri is still putting W's up on the board and showing that they can go out there and be competitive and that they're doing what they need to go out there and try to change their viewpoint of what Missouri is. And so you would imagine that as Missouri goes in to play Memphis and Vanderbilt, that they're going to be sitting at 5-0 before they have LSU come to their house, where they'll likely lose their first game. Then the question is do they beat a Kentucky at Kentucky or a Florida at home or at Arkansas and get to 6 wins, make a bowl, or even 7 wins and really just surpass people's expectations? And if that happens, you really ask yourself the question, does Williams Nwaneri stay committed to the University of Missouri, or does this commitment potentially flip? And I think that's something that we all need to watch and something that I think is going to be interesting going forward. Personally, in my opinion, I think right now, as it sits, Williams Nwaneri stays a Missouri Tiger, unfortunately. But you know, you guys don't like hearing this. It's a 5-star recruitment. Anything could change. Who knows? Alabama, Georgia, anybody can come in this recruitment. And if it's an NIL-driven deal, maybe an NIL bag gets dropped that's just big enough to sway him from Missouri. Who knows? We'll find out closer to signing day. But looking at some of the other big prospects on Oklahoma's board, like a Terry Bussey, the 5-star athlete out of Timpson, Texas, extremely talented kid who came to Oklahoma during Arkansas State, talked about how well he loves those relationships here and how well Oklahoma's done at building those relationships with him. And it really seems like Oklahoma is picking up some steam with the 5-star athlete. Now, while nobody is saying Oklahoma is the favorites right now to win this battle, by no means is everybody saying Oklahoma is out of this race. Oklahoma is in this race, and Oklahoma has a shot. But when you're going up against A&M, Oklahoma fans know way too well that A&M just has the ability and the way to go out there and land those prospects. But you look at guys like Grant Bricks, who you're kind of waiting on a Nebraska or an Oklahoma decision. Nebraska hasn't looked very good, so a lot of people are like, well, hey, is this kid going to come and make a decision pretty early? In my opinion, and I was talking to Jay over at Unfair Sports about this the other day, but I don't think you're going to see a commitment from Grant Bricks just right away. I think when you look at Grant Bricks, it's just going to come out of the blue at a random time, and you're going to see a lot of people shocked, right? But this is an Oklahoma-Nebraska battle, and Oklahoma fans should feel really good about where they sit with Grant Bricks, knowing that Nebraska is just not putting up a good season. Then you have Michael Boganowski, the 4-star. Oklahoma wants to play him at safety, but he's listed as a linebacker, so it just really depends on who's recruiting him. And, you know, you kind of been asking yourself, well, why is Kansas State not the winner here yet? Well, that's a good question. And that would lead you to believe that Oklahoma should be favored in this recruitment since he hasn't pulled the trigger on Kansas State. And I believe with Michael Boganowski, we'll probably hear something by the end of the month. If we don't, I'm going to be absolutely shocked. But we'll continue to follow up with the Boganowskis and get you guys some more information there as that recruitment continues to go on. That's just an interesting recruitment that I think a lot of Oklahoma fans are going to watch because, well, another really talented kid. And then you look at Daniel Akinkumi, the offensive tackle out of England. And guys, I really like this kid. I think he'll be a Sooner. I've told you guys that many times. If you guys haven't already, you need to go follow his YouTube channel, subscribe to him. He's trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. And if you want to see what these visits are like, hey, he's posting these visits. He's vlogging these visits. So as a non-football player or recruit, you can get an idea of what it's like to be a recruit and take these official visits or something like that. So keep your eyes open there. And then finally, you're looking at other prospects like Jordan Seton, because everybody heard the David Stone Instagram picture where somebody asked him, how many guys from IMG are potentially looking at Oklahoma? And he said 4. And of course, some of the guys that immediately come to your mind, guys that people immediately think of, is Jordan Seton, the borderline 5-star talent at the offensive line that has to go up against David Stone every single day. That's one of the first prospects that you look at. And although you really feel like this is going to be a South Carolina or a Florida battle, when I say South Carolina, because man, guys, Shane Beamer has just done such a good job at recruiting kids there. Guys that really they probably shouldn't be in a conversation for, like a Jordan Seton. So that will be interesting. You additionally have a guy like Jordan Johnson-Rubel, who it's kind of in the same position as Danny Okoye, where he just really needs to see the development from Oklahoma. Now, flipping him from Texas is probably a pipe dream, but that's one you got to throw out there. Obviously, you have a Jarrett Gibson who wanted to be at Oklahoma. He wanted to be here. I don't think you're taking Jarrett Gibson at running back, but that's always one you got to keep in the back of your mind. Maybe you look at a Jimothy Lewis, the 6'6", 270-pound offensive tackle. Maybe that's a guy that Oklahoma tries to go out there and get. But regardless how you look at it, there are lots and lots of talent at IMG Academy in this class. So David Stone could be talking about a plethora of people, and maybe he just isn't able to get some of these guys here because it is later in the cycle and Oklahoma hasn't had a chance to, I think, really work on a lot of these kids. So I definitely don't think you're flipping a guy like Ellis Robinson. That's not going to happen. But Oklahoma recruiting after this win against Tulsa, it's definitely only got to be boosting where Oklahoma's going. Oklahoma's only got to be trending up. That's my take. That's my opinion. And if you guys have not already, you need to go ahead and hit that like and the subscribe button. And you need to jump down in the comments below and let me know what y'all's thoughts are so far about this 2024 class, because they're tracking for a top 5 class. It's expected that they will give us a top 5 class. And I don't doubt for a minute that Brent Venables is not going to hit the top 5 class for the second year in a row. So guys, again, if you haven't already, hit that like, hit that subscribe button, and jump down in the comments below.